Hello everybody, welcome back. This is Miss Murphy, and today I am going to go over what your next steps are with your larger composition for your essential objects drawing. So you will need your 12 by 18 paper that you got in your materials pack in the beginning of the year. You will need some scissors, a pencil, a ruler, or simply use the edge of a book or a piece of paper that you can use to accurately make a line where you have your 12 inches across the paper, but I highly recommend using a ruler so that you get accuracy with that. So you're going to take your 12 by 18 paper and turn it into a 12 by 12 paper, which is pretty simple. So I usually just I'm going to show you how I did this on the back here. So I usually take my ruler and I showed this to you in class, but I'm showing you on the other side. I make a few marks before I draw my full line so that I can cut my paper accurately. So these marks, I'm just going to line them up. Then I take my ruler against the edge of those lines, make sure that the edge of my ruler is nice and snug against and straight on the edge of my paper there. And now I have my line. So this is marking my 12 by 12. I'm going to take my scissors, or if you have an X-Acto knife, even better, you can use that. But when I cut this, I'm just going to go very carefully so that I get a nice clean edge and just go slowly across the edge. I would not throw away the extra paper because you could actually use it during this process if you needed to. Like if you wanted to test out values, you can use that. Just doing some practice drawing on it, like practicing with part of an object that you are doing on your final composition. But I'm going to set this aside for now, and I'm going to get started on my final composition. So some of the things I talked about based on what we did last, which was your 3 compositional sketches. You had to come up with an idea for 3 compositions based on the objects that you chose. You can have up to 3 to 4 objects. The whole goal with this drawing is a few things actually. First and foremost, we want to think about how to use our space. Second, we're going to think about the placement of our objects. We're also going to think about maybe how we can create a sense of depth once we start getting into details and adding value. But some of the things I talked about in terms of creating a sense of depth when you were placing your objects was thinking about like overlapping, layering objects, and also having at least 2 areas on your paper where those objects are cropped off the edge, meaning like they are kind of going off the paper. So I'm going to start my drawing. I can show you over here. I have my objects ready. They're all set up for me on my construction paper. Also have a direct source of light so that you have a very distinct shadow, which is also going to help create some depth, because those shadows are going to also create more interest throughout your composition. And it's going to create a sense of depth because you have that light source coming in, so it creates a little more layers in your work and gives you some more light and dark value on the actual objects themselves. So I'm going to angle this a little bit as I look at it, but I'm only focusing on one part. Remember, I'm focusing in. And even if you don't draw the same exact thing that you chose here, I actually chose this one. I changed it a little, but I went with the idea of not leaving behind too much negative space. So now that my square is ready, I'm going to really take my time and think about the placement and how I draw my objects. So I'm also going to start out really lightly. I'm not going to worry about any light and dark values at this time. So I'm going to begin with my paintbrush, and remember that your objects are probably going to need to be enlarged a bit because Now that we are working on a larger scale, we want to be able to use the compositional space, but since we practice on a smaller scale, we can kind of gauge where things need to go. So I am just going to lightly, very lightly draw in my paintbrush first and take my time to really observe the edges. Remember that you're also looking at those positive and negative spaces that are creating shapes around your objects. So I'm going to go on, like, add a little bit of my details down here. And just for the sake of the fact that this is a demonstration where I want you to simply get started, I'm not going to go all the way with this drawing. I'm just going to show you how I'm starting out. So at least I start with one object, which is my paintbrush. By starting with one object, I can now figure out where everything else is going to go. So I would really try not to just focus on doing multiple parts of the drawing at first. Focus on maybe your largest object, and then start adding your other objects, because this will give you kind of a guide and help show you where things need to be placed. So for example, I am using the sighting technique of looking at how far down my glasses are underneath of my paintbrush. So when I look at this arrangement, I'm looking at, oh, okay, my glasses are actually, they go down about this far, so I need to see with my hand, I'm sighting that and seeing where it goes. So approximately this far down on the brush, I'd say, on my paper, is where the glasses start. And oh, you know what? I'm going to go down a little further because they're actually kind of going under this curve. So if you look at the edges and ridges and the curves, you're going to see where things need to be. So I'm going to start out like that. And now I know where my glasses go. And I'm going to also, like I suggested in the last video, add some sighting marks so I can see, okay, my glasses are going to go over that far, and over here they reach underneath my paintbrush just about here. So I'm going to really kind of take my time and figure out the proportions, remembering though that these might be a little larger than they are in real life, and that's fine because this is a larger composition. So I'm going to bring this in a little bit. I can always go back in. Think about when you did your first drawing and you had to really take time on those two objects. You're kind of going back to that again. And thinking about the scale and not focusing too much on perfection at first, because you know you can go back in and refine. So this is just showing you that I am starting with my glasses, my paintbrush, and I normally draw a lot slower than this, but I'm doing a demonstration, so I want to show you how to begin, and almost there. I'm going to go back in and I will be sharing another video where I add more details, but now that I have these two objects, now I'm going to see how far back my my radio is. So my Bluetooth little radio that I have in this composition, I know is coming down about, it's not touching the glasses, so remember to use your sighting technique, so kind of visually measuring where things go. And I know that it comes down on a diagonal over here, so I know that I'm going to have a more three-dimensional object. And I'm going to also go around the curves here and really take my time to see, oh, okay, how far out does it go from the paintbrush And I'm going to start with the top edge. I actually want to take this out here because I noticed something. So I just want this to go through here. I'm not going to worry about all the inside details. I'm just worried about the outside details right now, the edges. So I'm going to go around the edge. And this is basically it. I could do a lot better on this edge, but this is purely for demonstration. So this is just to show you how I started. I also want to say that I like to turn my drawing in different directions sometimes when I'm working with it, just so I can see where I'm at. And something else I suggested to you in class today was, I'm just showing you what this looks like from different angles and how much of the space I'm using. I have a lot of negative space, so I am actually considering a couple things. One, I'm going to add a winding object in here to add more interest and create a leading line throughout my drawing, and to also eliminate some of the negative space. So that's one of the options that you can do as well. I'm probably going to add my computer mouse somewhere in there, winding through to add something else. So is there something else that you could add, or that needs to be added, an extra object, an essential item that is important to you that you are going to include? So think about what you could add, and think about eliminating a lot of that empty negative space in your drawing. And that's pretty much how you want to get started. So hopefully that helps you get a good beginning, and I'm going to continue with the next video and getting into how I add my winding object as well as other details. So hope that helps, and good luck with your start. Thanks.